Alright, what's going on, guys? This is Maury
and Pat from the Erie Better Beer Bureau.
Today we have a beer from Ballast Brewing Company out of San Diego, California. This is their Victory at Sea Coffee Vanilla Imperial Porter. Weighs in at 10% alcohol, and we're going to get into this one, let you know what we think about it.
Heavy on the coffee.
And the vanilla isn't too far behind.
No. In fact, in some ways, that combination of coffee and vanilla kind of remind me of a barrel-aged beer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, getting that vanilla right behind it.
That is pleasant. Very roasty. You know, those roasted, like, bittering malts are coming through. The coffee's coming through. Almost like an oiliness from the coffee. And then that vanilla is there.
Yeah, there's a richness to the aroma on
Very rich. And it's not a tame aroma. It's pretty in your face.
It's, as far as aromas go, it is very bold. And did you just take a sip?
Not on purpose. I got so far into the aroma that it touched my lips. Cheers.
Wow. I'd say the taste follows the nose on this one.
It follows the nose a lot. And I'll tell you what, there's a creaminess to this beer. Mm-hmm. It's creamy right up front. It's like, you know, kind of sweeps over your palate with this big, like, thick mouthfeel. And then it fades into that bitterness from the coffee and the vanilla. Really nice.
And again, the coffee is very dominant, and it's a very bitter coffee, a very roasty, bitter coffee.
I don't think the bitterness truly comes out, though, until the finish. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the bitterness from the beans lingers on the palate after, you know, long after the sip.
And I am kind of surprised, for as strong as the coffee and vanilla flavors are, there is some alcohol on the back end of this beer.
A little bit, yeah.
You know, this beer is actually surprisingly carbonated as well. Mm-hmm. It's definitely on the higher end of carbonation for what I usually expect out of a beer like this.
Yeah, it has a bit of a carbonation to it. Definitely, and it kind of pops right out towards the middle. But to me, I get a lot of that vanilla around the mid-palate. So it starts off for me, I get that creamy, like a little bit of roastiness, and then it comes right into the coffee, then it's into the vanilla, and then more towards the end, the coffee comes back out, kind of wipes that vanilla sweetness clean, and there's a lingering coffee bean / roasty bitterness on the back end of this thing.
But it also leaves kind of a buttery taste on the back end, too, with the vanilla.
What I tend to compare this beer against is other coffee beers. And for me, I'd reach for this over a breakfast stout. I'd reach for this over a wake and bake. And those are both really good beers that sit around a 4 for me. But the mouthfeel on this beer, and then the mix of throwing the vanilla in there, and I'm a bold coffee guy anyway, so although there is a pretty aggressive bitterness that lingers, I don't so much mind that. So yeah, I'm going to go 4.5 on this one.
Yeah, you know, I'm not sure I would take this beer over wake and bake and breakfast stout. It's much harsher than either of those beers are. You know, it's much bolder, much more upfront with the coffee flavor. Debatable with wake and bake, but, you know.
Yeah, wake and bake's a little more coffee forward than FBS, I think.
But it's still, you know, a much bolder coffee stout. And me, I'm not a big coffee drinker. I don't, you know, to be honest, I haven't had an actual cup of coffee in almost 5 years. But, yeah, I don't know. This is not a beer that I could just drink over the course of a night. It's a sipper for me.
Right. I don't know that that's intended, though, either.
No. Yeah,
I see your point, though.
It's a well-made beer, and it has some nice, bold flavors. I'd like a little more balance out of it. You get a little bit of that vanilla sweetness, but if it had some, like, any malt sweetness to it at all, I think that would do this beer a favor, for me, anyway. So I'm going to rate it a little bit lower, give this beer a 4 out of 5.
All right. Till next time, cheers.